Good afternoon, Fitzketeers. Really appreciate you coming back in. I know a few of you may have been here or all of you may have been here from this morning. We did have a little bit of technical difficulty with the audio from Dan. We do apologize about that. We do believe we have it fixed, so it shouldn't be a problem. But I would like to welcome you back. This afternoon session, we're doing prom traditions, some fun things, and I guess I should have introduced myself. I assume that people are coming back. My name is John Hosek. I feel very fortunate and blessed. I get to work on the Fitz team. We do lots of Fitzliciousness for the products we get to work with, and bling factor, which is always very fun. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started on our projects this afternoon. And again, we will have an audio for this afternoon. Dan is out of town, but he wanted to make sure he was a part of it, so he pre-recorded it. And again, we get all the bugs worked out, so it'll be great for this afternoon. So when we think about prom and prom traditions, we know it's right around the corner. And it's like listening with what Dan says. So often I think we have to look at prom differently because I think oftentimes when we think of prom, so often it's like prom time and we're like, we're just like, it's get fired up, having some fun with all the new products and all the pieces that we get to work with element-wise. We do have so many things from feathers, from flutters to bling to chains. The one I did earlier this morning were some chains, really some great new elements to put into floral design, which I think is very fun. So let's start our prom traditions. We talked a little bit about Oasis glue, and I know it's a really quick, easy little receptacle. Taking the box, cutting the top off, opening it up, taking glue, and making yourself a little holder for either glue or your floral adhesive to fit into. Keeps it all in one spot, which love. So this first project we're going to work on is going to be a corsage. And the products that we're going to be working with today, and I'm sure you'll have some different ones. We have all different kinds of bracelets and different pieces. This one I'm going to be working with is Color Your World bracelet. And you're going to notice that on these bracelets, there's a new Ultimate Design disc clip, which is this little bad boy or girl. And it's a great tool to give us a different twist to floral accessories. Obviously, we have our design disc on the bottom side. The clip gives us the ability to obviously do similar to the other way of bracing the design down. So it really is kind of a fun little tool to work with. I'm going to show you both ways with this a little bit later on, but for today, for this morning, this afternoon, we're going to leave it on for right now. We're also going to be working with flutters, which is this great product. This is Black Swan. It's got some wonderful little bling goodies on the inside. And we're also going to have our stem of accents. There's marquee, and this is one of the beautiful elements that we give a chance to add in for a little bit of the sparkle factor, which I think are fantastic. And we're also going to be working with some silk leaves, or permanent botanicals, as we like to call them many times, into our corsage and boutonniere work. So it really gives us a little different twist and flair. One, it gives us the ability to be able to do them way up in advance. And if we want to add in some fresh, ruscus or anything of that nature as a fresh element, it really gives us a whole different ability. But we do like the permanence. So our design we're going to do this afternoon, for those of you that are playing with me, this bracelet itself is called Precious, which is very fun. And we're going to add some flutters, obviously, some wonderful ribbon techniques, and some a little cascading with the ribbons, which I think are add a nice little element to it, which we can do some fun things with too. And obviously adding our rhinestones and our jewels into the design itself. with alstroemeria and some roses. So let's put this little trooper off to the side. I'm going to bring my screen down, so hopefully everybody will be able to see me. Okay, so let's keep that there so you can still see it. A lot of times when we work with our wristlets and our different products, as I mentioned, we have the new Ultimate Design clip on here. A lot of times what I like to do to start off with is I will remove this little rosette. And so many times Dan always laughs at us because we floral artists like to a lot of times just take things apart to reconstruct them, so to speak. But the reason why I like to take this off, and this is a good example, it's a little bit loose. And a lot of times I like to make sure my background is engineering. For those of you that know me and those of you who don't know me, mechanics are very strong to me to make sure that everything can mechanically be sound and it's not going to fall apart. Because we know those kids, when they're on the dance floor, we want them to fall apart and drop to the floor before our designs fall apart. So what I'm going to do, if this was in a square knot, I would loosen that. This one was not. So I'm going to retighten this. I want to make sure this is really snug and tight down to my bracelet, so it's actually not going to move around. And I'm going to tie that back down to a square knot. I want to make sure that does not come loose. I like using a lot of mechanical binding points and things to make our job a little bit easier and our work easier. So I'm not going to cut these off quite yet. So what we're going to do is you should have some number 3 ribbons, some fun stuff, or whatever you actually have in your shop or where you're doing your point of sale. These are called Princess, and I'm just going to play with a couple of these just because they just kind of give us a really fun motion and line. And the flutter that I chose to use for this design is black, so I picked up a little black Princess line, which I think is very fun. A lot of times I know people like to tie the ribbons off as opposed to using florist wire. Whichever you're more comfortable with, I think is great. I'm just going to kind of start with the 2 ribbons because black is a little stronger color. I'm going to put that actually on the bottom. So as you're working with a ribbon, I like doing the little button towards the center. Don't have to. You can just do a loop starting this way. But a lot of times it just allows me a little bit of a fuller spot for my corsage. I do like twisting the ribbon. This is double-sided ribbon. If you just want to loop it back and forth, that would be fine. But when you twist it, it actually allows you to open the bow up a little bit better. It gives you a little fuller rotation when you twist the loops back and forth. So I'm going to probably put anywhere from 4 to 5 loops on a side. Let's just say 5 to be safe. I like tails. And a lot of times how to make some tails, I just continue one larger loop and bringing it back and holding it underneath. I'm going to take my scissors and just kind of cut this little kid for now. I want some fun long tails, so I'll leave that a little bit longer. So I'm going to layer. I'm going to go back with, and you could put the black on top first and do the silver for the accent, but the black is a little bit stronger of a color and a base color, so I'm going to actually use this on the bottom. So I'm going to have my little loops come out just a little bit further. Same technique in twisting. And I want to make sure I have some fun tails on this also. So if you wanted to have a whole bunch of tails, you could keep doing several of these loops to keep having more and more. So let's just make it a little bit more fun. So let's say we'll do, back up, we'll do 1 loop, 2 loops, so that'll give us 4 tails coming down. I'm now going to take a piece of floristry wire, and if you'd rather take a piece of ribbon and tie it, that's fine. Just because I like to do layering, I think the floristry wire gives me a little more ability to tighten it. So I'm going to kind of give it this really nice scrunch. And I'm going to twist this wire so it's nice and tight at the base of my bow. I'm going to take my little shears and snip that off. So hopefully you have a pair of snips of some type. You're going to have some scissors that you can work with, a pair of needle nose pliers, and hopefully a pair of side cutters or side clips of some type. So on this design, I'm going to use the strings of my bow to attach that together. So these two wires that I left, I'm going to take those off about a 1/4 inch above my ribbon and hold on to them. They're going to go flying and hit your neighbor. Then I'm just going to take my little needle nose and I'm going to bend those down into my design. I want to make sure my mechanics, something doesn't poke the young lady that's going to be wearing this. Just as we start layering things, you just never know sometimes. So I'm just going to bury that little trooper in there. So what I like to do next, you can do a couple different kinds of things. A lot of times people like to camouflage this disc clip and the ultimate design clip. What I'm going to do first, and a lot of times I would actually add the leaves right now, but as we fold these over, I want to add those last in case I would like to cover part of that up. So the bow, I'm just going to kind of split it. Forgot to cut one of my little black loops here, so cutting that one. So I can clear a little space so you can see it, sorry. So I'm going to put that right across the top of my bracelet. And those ribbons that I used to tie and secure down my design disc and my ultimate design clip, I'm going to use that to secure these kids back and forth. So again, I'm going to take one more square knot and kind of give it that really good crunch right down. It's not going to move. Tie one more to make sure it's secure. That's secure. If you want to leave these on because it plays with the color of the bracelet, that's fine. If you want to take them off, that would be fine also. I'm going to remove them. We got a lot of things that are happening right now with the bow and things. So I think I would really like to remove them. I don't believe they're going to add much to the design element. So I'm going to cut these little kids off about a 1/4 inch. Just so there's just a little bit holding on to non-secure to make sure it does not take the integrity away from my knot. So now on this ultimate design clip, a lot of times if you had like a cascade or something you wanted to bring out a little further wired and tape flowers, you could do that. I'm actually going to open my bow up a little bit here. And I'm going to camouflage this design clip. It's going to give me, this gives us the ability to make a larger corsage very easily. But I'm going to lift up a few of my little loops and a couple of my tails. And I'm going to secure a couple tails under the ultimate design clip, holding it that way. If you want to put a little glue there, you could. But those will kind of camouflage that direction. Again, an extra securing factor, and if it wanted to be a floral element, we could. But for this instance, I don't think it's needed. I'm going to throw this one little loop in there just to give myself a little bit of something extra to hold into. And again, if you wanted to put a dot of floral adhesive there, you could. Not necessary for this. Securing that one down, securing that one down. And now refluffing my bow a little bit to make sure I kind of can cover up all of the design disc on the bottom. And you can see there really is not a whole lot that you would actually see that's going to be exposed, but there are a couple spots. So what I'm going to do is take a couple of the corsage leaves, and you should have 6 of them for this project, you 5, 6, whatever works for you. I'm going to remove their stems because I don't really need them. I think I'm going to probably use all 6 of them. So I'm just going to kind of stack them all up, take your wire cutters, and just kind of remove them off. So I just took all the little stems right off. And again, when we work with floral adhesive and gluing techniques, whenever you glue to glue, it holds much better. So what I have here, I've got a couple little spots that I wouldn't mind attaching the leaves to camouflage. Just a little bit of the design disc that is starting to show. And again, as I'd mentioned in the earlier program, Susie made a great comment about with the floral glue, not to squeeze the center if you can help it, but actually start from the bottom. So it kind of gives you We're just going to put a really light film on those two edges, and I'm going to hit a little bit of that Ultimate Design clip towards the end on that side. I'm going to let that kind of sit there for a second just to dry. I'm going to grab a few of my floral leaves, my Never Wilts. I'm putting a little bit of glue on each one of the ends where I want to put those attached. And this glue within 20, 30 seconds will start getting tacky, which is nice. It's like tacky, tacky, tacky. And by the time it starts setting up a little bit, I'll be able to put it right onto the corsage. So again, I'm lifting up kind of the skirt of those ribbon loops, and I'm going to touch, bring apart, back down, touch that glue, pull it off. That allows a little bit of air, allows that sticking to happen a little bit faster. I'm going to do these two sides, which cover quite a bit quickly. Touch, pull off, right back down. Touch, pull off, back down. Now I'm just going to kind of open it up, and I can see where my ultimate clip is at. I've got a little bit of a metal exposed there, so I'm going to touch, make that go away. Same way on this opposite side, pick up its skirt. Oh, don't pick up my skirt, sorry. And again, on this little clip, I'm going to bring it a little bit further down into the ribbon itself, back off and back down again, and that really camouflages that base. This gives us a wonderful layering base technique to start with, and we don't really have to worry about anything showing from this point on. We're going to work with spray roses and alstroemeria. At this point, you also, if you see a few little loops that you want to rotate around, this is a good point to bring those to fluff this open. Now, a lot of times for us at our shop, what will happen when the prom troopers come in, we have all different kinds of ribbons out there for them to pick from. So we'll start in their little corsage box. This is one of those little marketing tools. We want the prom peeps to come out, take a look at this. We want them to look at the ribbon. We want them to pick up the flutters. We want them to pick up the rhinestones and gems to become attached to them. So they need to have these in their design. So we start working with this and we get up to the front counter, and let's say maybe it's an $85, $95 corsage, and they're like, oh, I didn't want to spend that much. And we say back, well, just put back what you don't want. And of course, no, it's theirs now. They really have attached to these elements that they've picked out. So it's really great to let them touch it, feel it, be around it, and have those properties for them to see. So let's set this little trooper down. Now, another thing which would be kind of cool, we could add some knots to a few of these ribbons, which we can do later, just some little FYIs. So we're going to work with alstroemeria, and just going to snap off 3 heads. This one happens to be a very large alstroemeria, which is good for what I'd like to do it for. So when we work with alstroemeria blossom, especially that nature, when you have something that is this large, I mean, oftentimes we look at it and it's like, holy schmacks. I mean, that's going to be like a trumpet sticking way out of the design, so it's a little bit too much. Also, when you're working with the pistils, anthers, and the stamens, we want to remove those because we know those will discolor a dress. So just kind of remove those little bad boys and girls out. I'm going to set those off to the side. We're also going to work with some spray roses. There should be 2 to 3 blossoms of a spray rose. So again, a lot of times I see people picking up their tools to cut them off. You really don't need to. Just a quick little snap off with their head works just perfectly. And again, at this point, a lot of times if there's a guard petal or 2 that's not looking really happy, I do like to take those off. If the sepals, so these little kids on the bottom side are like facing down, they're really in your way, it's one of those things that just kind of take them off, and they're like, no, take it off, but yes, take them off. And I'm going to take that stem off. The reason why I want to take that stem off, we think about our gluing techniques, that stem is going to make it not be really securely down to the axis point where the bow's at. It'll keep it a little bit further away, so we really want that to be a smidge shorter. And like these little sepals, they look very pretty. They're kind of upright. Most of the guard petals look good. And this one looks pretty awesome also. And I like the different maturation cycles of the blossoms from open to partially open. And again, I'm going to take part of that stem off of that. And if you really were not comfortable with snapping it, by all means, you could take your snips and take it off. What I like to do when I'm working with designs and designs of this nature is I like to put the largest flowers in first. They're going to create the most visual impact in the design. They're going to create the focal in your corsage work or your party work that you're working on. Obviously, with this for corsage, it's going to be a very strong focal. When we look at these flowers, they're very pretty close in size and shape, but this carries a lot more weight as opposed to the alstroemeria. So when we're putting the flowers in, I like to start with the largest ones first. I want to make sure that I put enough floral glue on the back side. And again, I want to go glue to glue. I want to seal the moisture into that little rosette. And I'm not going to be worried so much if it actually wants to fall out. I'm going to touch it where I want it to go, pull it back away. It has now left a memory where that glue is going to be. And I'm just going to let it sit there. It might or might not want to stay in place. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to grab my next larger blossom. And again, I'm going to put just enough floral glue on the back of that just to completely cover it, seal the moisture in there. We know that the Oasis glue has an interdissessant to it that actually allows the moisture to be sealed into the flower. And again, I'm going to separate a couple of my little loops here, find that spot where I want it to go, pull it back away again, put it back in. And if it starts to fall out, I'm not going to worry about it. It's like this one, it's already pretty secure. I can see that it's actually holding really pretty well. You can see how quickly it started to dry. I'm going to put just a little dab on there since I pulled it back out again. As my glue goes flying. So again, glue to glue, it's going to go in very quickly. We'll put that back there. And this fun little bud, I'm going to allow that one to be towards the front. When I said his sepals are pretty good, actually a couple of these little guys need to come off. Because I think by the time I get them in there, they're going to kind of be in the way. Take a little more of that stem off. And again, I want to make sure I completely seal the moisture into where I remove that stem and enough on the back of the calyx area to cover it. Again, I'm going to separate a couple of my loops, find the spot where I want it to be, bring it back out, let it go back in again. I have this wonderful line. I mean, you could have done one towards here, one over here, one here. I'm just grouping. We think of design principles and elements. When we group like items together, it gives it a stronger impact. This gives us kind of a fun way to look at these. The alstroemeria blossoms, as I mentioned before, they're very, very large. And what we're going to do is we are going to actually remove them from their calyx area. We are going to deconstruct them. And what's nice about this is if we tried putting this in here, it'd be like a little umbrella on the roses. You wouldn't see much of it. Although, I mean, you might create a fun illusion there, but what I'm going to have you do is you're going to take your hand and completely gently lift up all those little florets so they're all going forward. You're going to take your snips and you're like, off with its head. You're like, no. The main thing is to make sure we get enough glue on all those cut ends. I want to make sure I seal that moisture into there, and I want to be able to secure all those elements to my corsage. So find some fun spots. Like this would be a great, I'm going all the way down to my axis point of my bow and letting go. And you can see how those rhythms really start playing nicely because the alstroemeria itself is much smaller. It's actually in the same plane as the roses to create this beautiful illusion. And again, if you wanted to, you probably could put a couple of the larger ones off to the side. But again, I think this deconstructing method really gives us a lot more usability for flowers that are larger. You know, we can deconstruct hyacinths. We can deconstruct stephanotis blossoms. Anything of that nature that's a white, especially stephanotis in particular, make sure you cover your hands in a topical treatment, whether it's Pristine, Hawaiian Mist, Crowning Glory. It's the oil of our hands that create that brown on the white flower. So it's really important that you do that. And it's very important that we always topically treat all the flowers once we're finished with them. So again, I'm just bringing all these florets right back up like they were when they were a little budulette, and off with its little bits and pieces. Again, I want to seal that moisture into this flower. And is it a lot of glue? Not really, but it's enough that I know it's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to come back down to these little edges here, and I'm going right into that access point. And I'm not worried if a few of those little florets come out. And again, when we think about the pistils and the stamens and the anthers, you may have a little bit of one of the pistils that want to come flying out. Let it come out. Not a big deal. We're looking more for that illusion, that color, that little palette of that Alstroemeria blossom. So we're getting some like fun dissecting lines. So I'm going to bring the last blossom on this side. You can kind of see it's just saying, put me here. If you didn't, when you put your ear down, you're like, yeah, that's where I want to go. So again, we're going to bring the florets up. And I know a lot of people get very uncomfortable with deconstruction of flowers, but we see such a trend with Alstroemeria deconstruction. We see lilies. I mean, years and years ago, think of like the glomelias and it was such a beautiful look. And I think we as florists kind of gotten away from some of it, but it really creates a beautiful, beautiful design element for our work. And I think it makes us look different again. It gives us that artistry and that uniqueness that we're getting as a floral designers. So again, making sure I get enough glue all over the edges. If a little bit goes down the center, that's great. It's going to hold everybody together. And again, this is that spot that kind of looks like it just needs a little something, something. And you can just kind of see how those rhythms just really start playing nicely. Everybody looks like they're playing. They look like they're playing together, not fighting, like you're not want to kick somebody out of the sandbox. But ideally, it just gives you a great rhythm for the design itself. And we have some really fun elements to add to it. The bling factor. We always love bling factor, which makes things great. And again, I see so many people cut off so much of this wire. And if it's decorative like this is, I think it's a great element to leave it on. Taking just like a pen or a pencil, and I call them little piggy tails, just creating some of these fun little grapevine coils that really give you just a fun little twist. I'm also going to bend it kind of in half here, and I'm going to manipulate now these gems so that they're kind of more front-facing as opposed to facing up and have to put it back in. I know they're going to be going somewhere this direction, so I've halfway got the battle taken care of by doing it that direction. So we're going to put 3 of these accents, and I believe you look at them in the catalog, they're called accents for our Fitz stuff. And it really does, I like these a lot. They're a larger gem. They've got a nice facet to them, so they really do give you a great look. And I can just kind of like stretch those little kids out. And what I love about leaving that tail on there, that tail, as you'll see in the design, really gives you another design element that really adds that little bit of coif or savoir-faire to the design. So you can take whatever kind of little tool you want to create with a shape. You can do it with square. There's some wonderful little devices out there that have squares, rectangles, triangles that we can make. But obviously, we use what's at hand, and a pen or pencil just makes it fast and easy. Again, manipulating these little troopers so that they're in place. And again, when we glue to the ribbon has a texture to it, so it allows that porous texture to absorb the floral adhesive. Obviously, there's not a lot of texture here, but the coils, as those work around, do kind of have a little bit of tooth, so they allow that floral adhesive to actually attach on. I'm going to scrape off a little bit of my extra little glue boogers, sorry to say. That probably was not a technical term. And just put a little bit of fresh on there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to separate a couple of these spots. I can see it'd be nice to have, it's very smooth, so let's add a little depth. I have 2 little ribbon florets right here, which would be very nice. I can add those little kids into it. And this would be a great spot if you want to shape it just a little bit, would be nice. And you can see how fun that little coil gives you just a little bit of this little sheltering technique as those little gems play across the top. a lot of times if I get a little extra, it's kind of nice to make that go away. And just make sure gluing a little bit cleaner and neater. I try to keep it at bay, but we know how that goes sometimes. You're not paying attention or a little bit comes off. So again, just enough floral adhesive to kind of like get a nice little coating on that tip. And again, thinking about where this line is happening on this design, I have my ribbons coming on both sides. So I'm going to bring another gem to this direction, which I think will be very beautiful. Separating, I want to make sure I get down to that access point where those gems can hold into that ribbon. And again, this creates some fun depth and some different elements of value that work back and forth. And our third one, we have several spots. I'm kind of seeing it being almost like that perfect triangle. We have a line going this direction, we have a line going this direction. Now we're cross-secting another line one more time. So I think up here would be a good spot. And again, separating a couple little loops. We have 3 of them right here, so we're just going to kind of open those little kids up and go into that spot. And where that metal is at, I'm just going to kind of scooch those together just a little bit so it makes sure that that floral adhesive grabs onto the ribbon. And we have our last but not least, is our little flutters. And I so love, I think this one's called Black Swan. It's nice because it has the gems to it already, which you can manipulate. And I like to take a couple little flutterettes off. And I'm going to suggest not to cut this. I've done that in the past, and you have feathers everywhere. But I just want a couple of these feathers to use in a little, just buying us some space and buying us some priceability. So I'm going to snip one of these guys off here, and they're all just wonderful, nice pieces. So I'm going to take one more off right there. And I look at this design of the flutter, which I really think is beautiful, but it's very straight and very rigid. It would be really pretty that direction, but I want to give those feathers just a little bit of rhythm. And I'm going to take the back, not the sharp part of your knife, but the back of the spine of your knife. If you take that and roll that on the back of that feather, you can create some softer, like if it gets it too far, you can always go back and open it up a little bit. But it just takes a little bit of that straightness away from that feather. Or if you want to be a really fun curly Q, you can make it be a little bit more of a curly Q. Just to give you a little bit more rhythms so that those just show a little nicer. And I'm going to take it off right before that connection. So I really don't need all of that part into this part of the design. So as I start looking at this design, I can see I have some beautiful ribbons coming off this side. This is going to be a very hairy girl. I'm going to put it on my wrist so you can kind of see. She should have shaved first. But we have some fun ribbons that are going to become plain this way and some fun ribbons coming that way. So it might be really kind of nice just to soften some of these edges. And thinking about where we're putting a few of these. Again, we can manipulate a few of these permanent leaves that come angled down a little bit on each side. So I'm going to actually add this to this side over here, just so it kind of comes over one of her wrists. And again, I want to make sure I get enough glue, floral adhesive on there, and I want to make sure I find a good access point going down. I'm going to go down inside this corsage to make sure I get it way in there to kind of show it off. It gives this nice little coif, almost like a little phoenix of little plumes coming out. So these little feathers, I'm also going to give them just a little flare-zewa, just so that they have a little bit of movement too. And just kind of find a fun spot just to be able to pull the color of that feather through our design. And this feather is just a little bit bigger than that one, so I'm going to bring this one down a little bit further towards the bottom. And there again, bringing these lines through the design, I think are very cool. And I just need to pull that one out for a second. He's interfering with my feather. So what's nice about it, we can manipulate those and make those work however we like. The feather there. I'll put you kind of back. I'm going to lift it up just a little bit further, just so it doesn't lay on top of my feather. And we're going to add our last little guy here. Put a little cap on there to keep that from drying out. I'm going to bring that up here just to bring a little bit of this wonderful color rhythm starting to play up. I'd mentioned before, it might be kind of fun to actually add some knots to a few of these. And you'll see that when you put that knot into the design, it kind of breaks the eye up. It gives you a little bit more of a bolder feeling in a couple spots. So to just do a couple of them might be kind of fun. I might have to crispen up my edges for where they fray a little bit from doing that. If you want to do the silver ones and the black ones too, it'd be kind of fun. I'll just do a couple of these just to make it. There again, grouping like items gives you a strong impact, so that maybe to do 2 knots on one of the ribbons might be kind of nice. And if you had an extra petal or two from our roses, if you had a really nice petal you wanted to create, you could glue a petal or something down on these sides, might be a nice way. Like this little ribbon here looks like it kind of bothers me a little bit. It wants to kind of camouflage. I'm just going to shorten that just to give it a little more. I'm going to crispen that one up and this one because it's a little bit frayed. And my scissors, I cut earlier some wire, which are not good. But ideally, we think of prom traditions, how fun some of this gives us some great ways working with some of the gems, the flowers, and just some beautiful, buying some great space. And there again, it can be made smaller, larger, whichever you like. But this is our first one we're looking at for our projects of corsage, and I hope you like. So our next one, we're going to move these little kids out of the way here for a second. We're going to do a fun boutonniere, and I'd mentioned about a lot of the products that we're seeing hit the market. So again, using these projects, a lot of times we try to use one package up for all the items so you can actually really get your mileage out of it. I love this. It's called an Easy Pin. It's one of the best products. We use it in special events a lot of times too. These are great to put them on head tables. You can put them right through the back of the fabric of the skirting on the head table to put your garlands up. On this instance, we're obviously going to do ourselves a little boutonniere, which is kind of cool. So we have our Easy Pin. We have our flutters. We have our wonderful little gems. And we're going to use a little bit of corsage tape. And I like this for 2 reasons. I'm going to show you the corsage tape and its little holder that it creates. And we should have, I believe, 4 silk leaves. One, two, three, 4. Kind of got all caught in my little bag. So what we're going to do is a lot of times we can create some really fun looks by this being longer, creating a longer tail. I'm going to do a little bit more of a composite feeling. And again, one of those things just to make our mechanics be a quick, easy way to do that. I'm going to attach my flutter. I'm going to do one of my leaves backwards facing. I should probably show you my little play first here. We're going to create this wonderful little composite. Boutonniere. So it's a composite of Alstroemery and spray roses, and it just really kind of gives us a great little accent, especially if our young lady is wearing this. We can have the gentleman wearing something very similar, which would be a great look. So a lot of times when I'm working with the Easy Pin for a boutonniere, what I love this ring for, we save all these rings because your design can set in there so nicely and you can work on it. So oftentimes, that's what we do for that. So what I'm going to do is take my easy pin, my flutters, one of my wires, one of my leads facing forward. And if you've not worked with corsage tape before, I'll just explain that. Corsage tape, when you first get it off the roll, it's not sticky. But when you pull it, it creates this stickiness that it actually holds. So I'm going to pull myself just like a little out of the corsage tape. Pick one of my leaves. And if you'd rather use the leaf straightforward, I just want, what's going to happen is we're going to reflex it around and it's going to camouflage itself. The reason why we're doing it this direction. So I'm just going to use the floral tape towards the top. And tape that little kid. And I'm actually going to cut off part of this base, so I don't really need to tape it all the way down. I'm going to tape it down to that first notch. You're going to see a little notch right there, which kind of holds it in place. So if you wish to come back up here, you tape that down a little bit, that works too. So at this point in time, I'm actually just going to kind of cut this part off. I really don't need that extra. And now we have our extra leaves here. You don't really need the wires that are on them. I'm going to take these little kids off, hold on to them, or they'll fly and hit your neighbor. So we're going to take a little bit of our floral adhesive, and I'm going to put a little fine layer across the top of my easy pin. I'm going to kind of secure this petal down. And again, like we did before, I'm going to use that for my little support. One little wire needs to be a smidge shorter. And I want these, I'm going on the back side, put a little bit of floral glue. A little bit of floral glue. And this one I'm going to coat just a little bit bigger because we're going to cover our tail up with that. So kind of think of that being your camouflage. It's going to get wrapped around. And I'm going to use one leaf there, one leaf there. A little air to it to make it stick a little bit better. You see the directional lines that we're creating. And before I forget, I'm going to take myself off a couple of the flutters, because I want to use those in a couple different spots. Take that one to the side. Get a little glue on the fingers, that makes things stick a little better. And I'm going to take this one out of here because this is a little bit cumbersome. Just because black is very aggressive and heavy, I'm going to take one more off to give me a little more play around my roses and my allspice. Okay, so that's our basing. And again, as we did before, we can, at this point in time or later if you'd like to, you can do some fun things with the feathers. A lot of times, I will do a lot of things now just because when you start putting the flowers into it, I don't want to bruise them. Because you do some fun little motion. You really can create some nice fun little shapes with that. So we're going to work with Alstroemeria. on some spray roses. It's basically going to be two blossoms of Astro. I'm doing some weight there. We'll just do a fun little bud duet. And we're also going to have a little bit of a filler, whether it's wax flower or something of nature. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to deconstruct my Alstroemeria. And I'm going to kind of sort them this time, as opposed to shapes. So there's round leaves. There should be 3 round leaves and 3 skinny leaves. I shouldn't say leaves, petals, sorry. You do not need the anthers or any of those little kids that can kind of go off to the side. Deconstruct again, cutting that off. And I separate them so we have our bigger petals in one pile, our smaller petals in the other. And again, we're seeing so much. I'll put this front facing for you. So much with construction of composite flowers. So I just really want to create this wonderful illusion around the top. So I'm just going to put a really light film of floral adhesive kind of on this top layer, and we can still manipulate and move those around. So I want to think about these petals as they go around the side of them, put a little glue there and let it set for a second or two. A little floral adhesive on the back of that and let it set. And there's a front facing and round facing, and a lot of times when the petals are reflexed backwards, you can just kind of pop them the other direction to make them go the way you'd like. And if you're worried about the glue drying, you can kind of touch it down. You can see it's really sticking fast. Very quickly, we can cover and camouflage this base. Got 3 more petals. A little air under it so it sticks a little faster. And again, you can do this with any kind of a larger flower if you wanted to. I mean, roses, there's a little bit of a deconstruction of the rose, but not too much. Mainly just the Alstroemeria. It works great on the floral necklaces too to create this kind of a look. So again, the 3 larger petals. And we're going to go back with the smaller ones. A couple of these larger ones might be a little too big, so we're going to deconstruct them just a little bit more, just to make sure they kind of fall in that same line. I want to make sure I get glue on the back side and cover up that seam. And I'm going to put them in the middle in between where the petals are already at. And again, finding the right side facing color. Get a little glue booger on the end of there. Seal the moisture into the end of it. And what's great about this is they may not all be the same size, but we can make them look the same size by a little shortening or deconstructing them or putting them in a little further. And I know one of the questions is, this is one of those things as when we look at floral artistry, we are going to charge a little more for it. It takes longer to make some of these elements happen. And we have a wonderful little spray rose here. I'm going to take its guard petals off. And it's a very tight little kid, and like its little sepals, I'm going to give it a little heat because I just want to kind of get a little bit of air space in between those florets. So obviously I have a stem that's kind of long on this, and it's going to be sticking up like a little bit of an albatross. So I'm going to take that calyx all the way off. It's still going to be nice and smooth. It's going to be a better placement. And if there's a petal or two, you may have an extra spray rose or blossom. I'm just going to take a couple outside petals off in case I need to make this just a little bit larger. I want to make sure I seal the moisture completely on the back of the calyx area. It's already sticking that well with glue already being there, the adhesive. You can take it back off again and make sure it's in place. So a few of these little petals would be kind of fun. To just layer and allow the sepals to be on the outside and the petals to be, just to make it feel like it's a little bit larger. Helps camouflage. We're going to put a little bit of a wax flower in there for a little bit of a camouflage. The main thing whenever we do any kind of deconstruction is to make sure we topically seal it with a pristine, a Hawaiian Mist, a Crowning Glory, something to make sure we seal the moisture into these petals so that they're not going to dry out as quickly as they normally would. And we know that sometimes they're going to dry out, but that they're still going to give you kind of a fun illusion. We're going to grab a little bit of wax flower just to fill in a couple of little areas. And what's great about this, you can use those little sprigs that break out of the bunch. It's just more for a little bit of an illusion. And again, sealing the moisture into the ends of the stems. And I'm just going to kind of insert a few of these little kids around the outside just to almost create a Biedermeier effect with the little florets. We can kind of bury that down in. I'm going to take a little bit larger piece here to make a little more impact. Make sure you get enough glue on it so in case it gets bumped, it doesn't shatter. Little grouping-like items gives a little stronger impact there. Just to kind of create a little fun composite. And there again, camouflaging a few of our floral glue spots. So it's kind of creating this wonderful little composite. So now we have our last little yummy, which we can add into this. And again, I'm not going to cut this off. I'm actually going to allow that to be part of my little coils. And just to kind of do some fun things with them. Again, I'm going to deconstruct this entire piece. I'm going to take those off, this one off. I'm going to curl both ends. I'll probably use that in the design as a coil. And we can probably just separate almost all of them. And kind of watch the wires because they do go flying. Your neighbor will have them in their hair or in their drink or their coffee. Like, a little extra flavors never hurts, right? So again, you could actually insert them into the rose if you'd like to. That's one way to get them to stay. Because that base of the rose has a really strong presence. But I want to give them a little bit of a lift. So it just creates kind of a fun illusion because we have these little kids we can still move around. And again, it's given us a little bit of depth in our design. I kind of like this little pocket that's happening right there. And you could bedazzle the center of that one if that would be fun for you. I'm going to add one more down here. And I kind of like, because of these little kids seem a little straight to me. So to still play in some of those little areas to bring them down, I'm just going to bring one of them just to bring that little stair-stepping. So when I put this in, and again, I want to make sure I can see that end is a little bit sharp, and I don't want that to catch on someone's jacket. I want to make sure that gets curled inside itself the same way with this one. enough floral adhesive on there. And I can see that this little stair stepping would be kind of fun here. I'm going to go into the top side and back in. Just to create a little fun illusion there. And I have my little feathers that I have that are left that I snipped out just to reinforce that line. We're seeing such, I mean, the vintage movement is still really strong. We're seeing a lot of changes and transformations with it. So this kind of a composite feeling does give you that kind of a vintage feel. I'm going to curl these little guys just to reinforce where my line is going to go for my boutonniere. This one just a little twisty. There we go. And I'm just going to camouflage my tail a little bit. Enough glue to hold that in place. I'm going to go and make sure it gets attached to the silk never wilt leaf, just to kind of camouflage that. I'm going to bring its angle up just a little. And again, a little floral adhesive on there. And I'm going to stagger it up and stair step it, just to give it a little bit of movement. I think this would be kind of a fun little twist towards the top. Ooh, a little too much. Oh well. It won't come out that way, right? So I'm just going to lift this little floret up and make sure it gives a little bit more depth for the design, which can be really kind of fun. So again, we did this on the Easy Pin, which was fantastic, but you could do this on, you know, any of the design disc, design comb, the personality clip, which we're going to actually work on next. So it's more about the concept of seeing how composite, how cool that would be. But like for a gentleman's jacket, that'll make you dizzy. You know how nice that would be for a boutonniere. So I hope you liked working with the Easy Pin. And this is just one of the gazillion ways it is to be able to work with it and just to be able to let it rest there so it doesn't move around on you. That does give you a really nice way for that. So our next little kid we're going to play with, move these two off to the side, is we're going to do as I mentioned before, it's called the personality clip or the design comb. Put these in little bags last night when I was working on them. So this is the personality clip. What's nice about this is, I mean, you can use it as a buckle on your shoes. You can put it on a purse. You can put it on a jacket. You can put it, these are the class I did before this. We did one for like a boutonniere for a guy. I mean, our jacket pockets so often are not open anymore, but this little, this distance works great on that jacket pocket, so you could do something really kind of cool, which is very fun. So this is the personality clip. The design comb I'll show you in just a second. We're going to be using two of the accents, or accents, which we absolutely love. This one is called Marquee. You can see the elongated shape of the marquee. We're also going to use the flutters again, tweet, 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 which I love. And I do believe we have a couple silk leaves we're going to use, three of the silk leaves, a little bit of the Oasis glue. Just going to move this to the side just for a second, clean up my spot here. So this design clip, what we're going to create, and is really kind of a fun look. So this one I actually mentioned I was going to show you the comb. So this is the design comb. So I did one on the comb and one on the clip so we can kind of see both of them. And I mean, what's great about this, and those of you that know me know I will do this, I mean, it really gives you kind of a great look. Ooh la la. Yep. That's all. No, we don't post it on Facebook. Hopefully it happened quick enough. It didn't happen. But it really does give us a great rhythm line, and how beautiful that is cascading over to the side. The osteomaria blossoms, the ribbon, and the flutters. So with that being said, we're going to do this. We'll set this little kit off to the side. Let's move our tools out of the way so that the troopers can see that. And again, what I like to do on this design clip, and I know Dan, when we first started doing this, goes, why do you guys always take those roses off there? It's like, because we don't like it that way. The main thing is to make sure our design clip or device is actually secure. And this one actually is nice and secure. It's got a good square knot on it. I always like to give them another little tug just to make sure. I just want to make sure this piece is attached to my base, whether it's a bracelet, whether it's anything. Sometimes they're just not real secure. And what's nice to do, got a little fuzzy here trying to attach to my glue fingers. I know that's happened before, right, everybody? I'm going to leave those on because we're going to use that as our mechanical tool. A lot of times people will glue right in there and glue everything on top of it. I like to save a little bit. Obviously, the glue is not huge expensive, but it's not inexpensive either. So whatever we can do to make it more economical is the best thing I think that we all can do. So our little design clip, and you think about how it's going to go on. Ideally, if it's going to go on a pocket square or something of this nature, we'd want the clip to come down to be able to attach to it. But if it's a purse or something, may not necessarily be as big of a deal. So I'm going to take, this is one of the princess ribbons from Triman, which is, I love ribbon with a little bit of bling, especially when we're adding more bling to things. And there again, I'm going to take a bow, and I'm going to do the little loop in the center. So it's just taking that little loop towards the center, twisting, twisting. And ribbon in its own right is our best form of a mechanical binding tool to have all of our designs stay together. And I'd mentioned in the earlier program, which I'll show you on a couple of did a whole bunch of stuff last night to show you some things after we do our projects. You don't always have to have loops. You can take scissors and cut them and make them like shards, or it just really creates a whole different fun effect. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I just want to add some tails. So when you add your tails, I'm just extending that loop back under again, so it just makes it longer. You know, a lot of times you just cut it and add a tail, but it's just easy a lot of times when you're in that loop mode, just to go ahead and do that. And with this being I'm going to treat it as a hair piece. I don't necessarily want them to be on both sides unless it's going to be center of the person's head. So I want one side to be a little bit shorter. So we're going to snip that one a little bit shorter and have these little kids be a little bit longer. So they have a fun little play. So it'd be nice cascading out of the young lady, out of her hair. I'm going to take a little piece of florist wire. And again, to me, I do these bows up way in advance, and we'll do anywhere from 10, 15 of a color. We just keep attaching them. So one tail, we make another bow, another tail, and we just cut them off. So it's a great way to start making it a little bit easier and faster when we're starting to do some of the prom work and make it be a little bit quicker. So it really does speed up time for you. So these two wires on the bottom side, I really don't need those again. There are times we do need them. On this one, I'm going to take them off. And again, I'm going to bring these back down into my ribbon so it doesn't poke the person, whether it's going to be on her scalp. There's actually the design disc against it, so there really won't be an issue. But ideally, I just like to make sure our mechanics are really, really sound and they don't cause a problem for our troopers wearing our goodies. So what I'm going to do now is attach my ribbon to my design clip. And I'm going to tie it on just like we did before. And it's going to kind of find the direction where I really kind of want it to go. I want all my clips going that direction on the back side. So I'm just going to kind of separate this and do a square knot. very tight. I don't want that to come off. This is one of those times, again, they could be made up weeks, months in advance. I don't really need these. So often I know there's a good purpose for them, and you can actually take glue and cover their ends so that they don't fray. But oftentimes it's more trouble to do that. So I a lot of times use them for mechanical binding that they are for to secure that and just kind of remove them the rest of the way, cut them off. Of course, this one I chewed up because my scissors have got a cut wire on them. So come off there. So again, it's just more of a mechanical point just to hold them in place. And I see a lot of design disc clip showing on this one. And again, we're seeing a very much a minimalistic of green still, but I love foliages. I love it adding Italian ruscus and, Israeli ruscus and different kind of foliages just to camouflage this. And on this one, we're just going to use 3 of our corsage leaves. And again, a lot of times I see people, if you don't want to be able to shape them, you can rip this wire right off. But you may want to manipulate it enough to be able to camouflage it if you're deciding to put it in the young lady's hair. So I'm just going to take their wires off. And again, when you glue to glue, it holds much better. So we think of a triangle as being a great shape in geometry. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the design disc on all sides. And I know I can camouflage that quickly. I'm just going to set that down for a second. Put just a little dab of floral adhesive on the back of this leaf. Set it down. This leaf. And this leaf. The little glue's getting gooey. Again, a couple of my little florets or loops got into the glue, but I'm not really concerned about it. You'll never see it. Glue to glue, touch it to the glue, pull it back off. It sticks much better. And if you're really worried about the camouflage, just kind of stagger these almost like you're going to see like a little triangled sphere. And with 3 leaves, you can pretty much camouflage that entire disc. So you can pull it off again, allow the air to it. They're really getting tacky. So it's a great way to quick and easily camouflage the disc. So now, if we want to, we can still manipulate those leaves by leaving that wire in there. So a lot of times I like to do that just to give me that little extra advantage. So I'm going to set this little trooper down. We still have our wonderful flutters, and we have our marquee, wonderful rhinestones. And this is a very minimalistic design, but I think you really get a great impact by using the ostomeria deconstructed. I use a little bit of calcinia, which I think was just yummy also, which kind of picked up that same pattern. So on this one, I'm going to use gold ribbon. I got a couple of yellow ostomeria. And I'll bring our calcinia down here already. And again, I remove little anthers out of these little bad boys. They're just going to discolor. If you have a white tuxedo or something, it's just not going to be good. On this, what I would probably do before I start, just to make sure your loops are nice and open, just to give me a lot of ability to be able to get into that area. Again, when we deconstruct, holding all the florets up. This one's going to go flying, so let's take that off. Again, I can't stress enough, you have to, I said have to, right? Make sure you get enough glue all over those ends. We have to seal the moisture into there. Because when we take it away from the sepal, it doesn't have the ability to refresh itself, so we have to overcompensate for that. So I'm going to kind of hold that one in place, and they're going to probably go flying just a little bit. Not so worried about it. Just kind of secure them, hold it in place. If they want to fall a little bit, that's all right. I just want them to be a little more vertical, a little more in rhythm with the lines of the loops themselves. Again, deconstructing it, this little one. Making sure we get plenty of floral adhesive on the florets themselves. And with this being a cascading kind of coming off this side, I want to go to this direction. I can see I got a little bit of those fuzzy loopies showing. So I'm going to find that spot, put a little glue in there, bring it back off again. And just hold it for a second and let those little kids play there. I think that works very, very well for those. Really strong impact for that focal. And again, let's just say that one, let's see, it's even stuck already. Let's say if it fell out, don't worry about it. Put them back together. That's what's so great about this. I really don't need those pieces and parts. A little more floral adhesive on those ends, make sure they hold in place. Find that spot where you want it to go. Put it back in place, and even bring that little petal down a little further. That really gives it, a different little twist. And they're going to hold up really well, especially once we topically treat them with that translucent, so it actually keeps the moisture in. I really kind of like that petal down. Those little things kind of make a big difference. So I'm going to use a little bit of the fun calcinia just to play on these same lines again. I'm going to remove the foliage off of the stems of the calcinia, just so if the glue just gets caught on it, it doesn't want to go get stuck. And again, taking that foliage off just to make it a clean insertion. And this one's a little bit longer, so we'll use that for our cascade first. Making sure I get enough glue on the stem itself, seal the moisture into that end. Going to pick up the little skirts of this back end and insert that down in so I get into that axis point of those ribbons and insert that ribbon back on top of it so it holds that in place. I like this one, but I think I'm going to deconstruct it a little bit further. Have that be recessive coming back in a little bit further again. Make sure you get enough floral adhesive on. I'm going to kind of go back in that same area again, just a little bit further in. A little stronger impact, grouping a little bit strong item there. I'll bring this side. I'm going to bring a little more over to the other side. Shorten that a little bit. Make sure we get enough floral adhesive on the calcinia. You can bring it to this side. And again, I'm separating. This little kid wants to play. I want to separate these loops, come down to this bottom side and insert into there. So as you can see, and I can see, this one's wants to give me a trouble. And this is when they talk to you and you're like, you don't have control. So just for now, I'm going to cut that off. And I'm thinking, I don't want to waste that piece of ribbon because our client just purchased that or it ends up in a pile on the floor. So I know I can add this little piece right back in here. It can almost become a little flower in its own right. So I'll make sure I put enough floral adhesive on that piece of ribbon. And I want to find a little piece here to make it a little more cohesive so it's being a little more friendly to play. I'm going to separate these little loops right there and find the fun angle that looks like it'll actually play nicer. And what's great, when you glue texture to texture, it's going to stick really nice. I could pull it back out. It's going to create a little bit of glue stringers. So I was just trying to avoid that a little bit. But don't let those little things freak you out or give you any issues or troubles. So I just one more little bit of calcinia up here towards the top. Calcinia leaves little mice droppings everywhere. I hope it doesn't look like that way on your screen. There we go. So again, I want to make sure I get enough floral adhesive on those stems to camouflage them. And I can see it might be kind of nice to have a little something, something down here, just to have a nice little texture go back and forth. We still have our wonderful flutter. And again, I like buying some mileage out of these little kids. So I'm going to take that one off. 2 or 3 of them, whichever you'd like to do. I got 2 there already, so I'll leave it that way. I'm just going to kind of shape these in the shape that they're going to kind of go. They really already have a kind of a nice direction. This has got just a little bit of a kink to it, so we're going to take its kink out just to smooth them down a little bit. And we're creating this little fun line that direction, so I just want to create a little more. I have my knife. I'm just going to go ahead and shape these little kids too. What's nice about this is you can reshape them into kind of whatever you want them to do. And they're sitting there saying, no, you can't. You're like, yes, you can. Because we know flowers and things talk to us, right? It's according to how late at night, oftentimes when they're talking. But anyway, again, I don't want to take it up too far, which I've done before in the past, and you have feathers everywhere. I'm going to deconstruct this flutters right below its base. And I want to think about this entering into this one side here. I've got a little extra glue goobers here. So I'm just going to kind of get that completely nice and covered. Again, I'm going to go where my ribbons are at. So I'm going to separate, parting the C, so to speak, where those ribbons are. I'm going down into that axis point, pull it back out to get that glue touch there. Back down to that axis point again. And I kind of want those ribbons to touch on there just to make sure that secures and binds and locks together. And I'm going to bring one little feather. This is the next largest in size with a lot of glue. We're going to go into this little area. Just to add in a little bit of depth, a little bit of elevation. And these other 2 we're going to bring to the other side just to create this wonderful crescent. Here again, separating the loops of the ribbon. You can put a little touch of glue where you want it to go, pull it back out and back down again. Sometimes feathers, it's easier just to put them right in there because they get a little bit too tangled. So there's a smidge on the delicate side. They're delicate little flowers like we are, right? Again, touch it if you want to. And just make sure those ribbons just kind of attach into it. So that really gives you, a great way to start seeing some of these. I definitely could see a couple of knots in this. Maybe. You can see how it kind of breaks that line and makes it fall a little bit different. A little more up here. Come on. And those knots are too much to the same level, so let's just scooch it up a little bit. Okay, gives us kind of a fun little flare there. And last but not least, we have our little marquees. And like we did before, I like using this element to the marquee or to the diamond rhinestone. And I'm just going to use my pen and pencil to create these wonderful little rhythm coils. And I'm going to kind of shape it now, just because it'll make it a little bit easier to manipulate it back and forth. Same thing with this one. Going to kind of fold it in half a little bit. As I mentioned before, it's like that tooth of this wire really allows the floral adhesive to stick. And we think if I've got a couple really great places in someone's hair, you can see this this is my focal, but I have kind of an area here that's really grabbing some attention. To actually add a nice element to that would be fantastic. So we get ourselves enough little floral adhesive of getting a huge glue goober there at the end. Separating my ribbon loops again, going back where I want to. Ooh la la, yes, to give us some sparkle. We like sparkle. So again, I have a lot coming over here, so I think I might just kind of tie these guys around on this other side a little bit. Got to get rid of that little end there. It's driving me crazy. It's a short trip, right? And again, I'm going to separate a couple of these spots where there's some loops. I'm going to kind of go into here and allow that just to be a beautiful little piece of floral accessory. And voila, same way working whether it's the design clip or the comb, and obviously design clip. We can create some really great looks with floral and floral accents. I've got some fun things to show you. I was making some projects last night just to kind of show you some of the different things that we do as traditional prom and some prom goodies. So with that being said, this is one of a very fun way to play with ribbons and some different pieces of ribbon. And this is bubble bath as a design. And again, using some of the princess ribbons and just some of the different colors of ribbons together, mixing colors like that lime green and yellows together. But you know how fun and drippy. Again, our prom girl's got a very hairy arm, so pardon the hair. But it really gives you a great cascade coming down on both sides, and it gives you a great play back and forth when they are actually on the dance floor. And the main thing, as I stress more than anything else, is I want our girl to drop before our flowers drop or fall apart. So to make sure our mechanics are completely sound is good. If you've noticed, these are some of the little shards I was talking about, so you can cut the loops so it becomes more of a kind of a fun little design element. I think that's a great way to look at some of the corsages. This is another comb. I sealed them up too good last night. And you want tape to hold it, doesn't have a hole we want to. It's like, and again, some of the things I'm showing you have been considerably larger, but obviously this is nice and small and petite. So we have lots of young ladies now that are looking for things that are kind of small. They're again working with some of the gems. Some of the trick carnation is really kind of cool. And we're seeing, you know, how hot the color, the aquaculture is still with teals and aqua teals and how that's transcending. And it really has been moving through the seasons, kind of nice. A few little hyacinth blossoms and that real good. This is one of our, fun little magnets. And this is the Calaboutonniere Vine Star. And what I did on this was to create a little device with the marquees, the flutters, and glued that down into this little trumpet. It can be pulled right back out. But again, the hyacinths, you know, what a fun way to do something of this nature. And a lot of our corsages and boutonnieres, especially if we're sitting with a magnet, this is how they will go out of our store this way so they understand it's got a back to it to attach that magnet. A lot of times when you're getting hyacinths in, a lot of times I can manipulate their little blossoms open by just kind of like give them a little bit of a fluff. These are really pretty tight yesterday when they came in, but you can really actually help them to open up a little bit. But they're again working with some of those fun little pieces. Very simple, very beautiful. A keepsake that we were selling keepsakes, guys and gals. It really gives us an opportunity to look at things differently. And adding the bling really makes a difference. This rose I love. It's a marquee rose. And they're, again, playing with textures and fun. I mean, obviously, the zebra print is really wild and just really, really cool. And playing with some of the bracelets, and they're again playing with those colors, reds to reds, how nice those are. Some of the kisses and just some of the beautiful rhinestones that we have at Fitz really play these nicely back and forth together. And again, it's only 3 flowers, and they're a fairly heavy flower. We're seeing some girls that like them teeny tiny. We're seeing other ones that want them ginormous. So this is on a little bit of a larger scale, but we do have enough people that do like them that direction. So we have to be able to accommodate both sizes. And I like using a number 9 and a number 3 mixture together at times. This is just all number 9. I did one earlier with the number 3, but the number 9 really gives you a lot of bang for the buck, and definitely makes a huge, huge statement. Another one of the, like a fun boutonniere. These are on our metal discs. I believe this is the Grecian. I may be wrong. I apologize if that's not the right one. But what we did is we took chenille, poked chenille through the backside, and tied a little bit of a ribbon, so it gave us something to glue to so that the keepsake was not damaged with a lot of glue. And again, we can see the magnet on the backside of this, how nice that is. But for a boutonniere, how fun that can be. It could be either direction you'd like. Lots of fun little textures and elements that go into there. I mean, that'd be a great, great, great fun element for a boutonniere, which I think would just be yummy. Actually, just leave the screen up for right now. This other, which I love this little disc, the Rockin' Boutonniere. And a lot of times it's trying to find some different ways to use these little guys. What I did was a fun little quick hand tie. I just wired and taped all of the little elements back and forth. So I'm just going to insert and give it that oomph to pull that little kid in. And just kind of, this is one of those things I actually do add just a little bit of floral adhesive to make sure it's going to hold in place. And I want to make sure there's going to be enough space to get that in there. I'm going to put just a little bit of glue so if it hits the bottom of the container of the rocket. Maybe I'm going to put some glue on it. Let me seal shut on me. Hold on 1 second. A little rotor-rootering. Come back. So I'm going to put just a little bit of floral adhesive there. Just a little bit on the cap there to make that hold in place. And when that gets inserted into, I probably should have shortened it just a little bit more. Still hitting bottom. Much better. So again, it gives us a great, cool way. We're seeing composites and lots of different kinds of the vintage feeling, lots of little flowers and the construction, using a little bit of bling and some fun rhinestones. It really does give a great little boutonniere. I should say little, it's a little larger boutonniere, but it does give a wonderful look. Have another fun corsage here. And this is adding a few little extra accessories. We're seeing, how strong the gold element still is into the market share. This is Sophisticated Lady bracelet. And what I did was adding to the ribbons, the princess and the sparkles, sparklet gold, which I think is really very, very yummy. And these large sugar drops are a very inexpensive way to be able to add that fun bling factor to the corsage, which really gives you a beautiful look. And they're, again, kind of those cream ivories, almost ethereal in its feeling, a little bit of the calcimia plays in that same little, pinkish hue that you get there, which I think is very, very beautiful. And last but not least is just one little twist to the corsages. And I'm going to bring the screen back down one more time. Clean this off a little bit. So a lot of times we see our bracelets, and this bracelet is Bubble Bath, I believe. No, it's Avery, sorry. And again, what I did was untie the rosette. So normally that's on there, but a lot of times you're going to find some people. I do really like working with the Ultimate Design Clip, but you're going to find sometimes that you may not want it on there. And I think a lot of people are, how do I use it without? And what we do is we unsecure these little ribbons back off. And I save these, the Ultimate Design Clip. I save this because it's a wonderful tool to use for so many different things. You can see you can attach it to many things. We actually use chenille through those places to be able to make that work. But if you're looking to just shrink it down a little bit, again, this is a great way to add your design clip back in pretty fast and easy. So for those of you that are needing it for a little tiny girl, you just kind of twist this little bad boy back together and you have your tiny little clip back again. And the chenille is soft, it doesn't damage the keepsake bracelet. But you're going to find so many uses for this. The Ultimate Design Clip really does work well for many things. I would like to thank each and every one of you. We have Mr. Dan coming up here very shortly with some great marketing ideas for you. I'm hoping you can take a few ideas and use them in your shop and have some fun. Or there again, we always talk about how wet do you want to get? Do you want to jump into the water, both feet forward? Do you want to wade in? Do you want to go swimming? And what I mean by that is, maybe wading in the water is adding just one of the rhinestones to a corsage and adding 2% to your bottom line. Maybe it's adding all this bling buffet. We want you to do all these things to get the girls and guys really interested in prom. So it's just have some fun, and the main thing is fun. And that's one of the things Dan always emphasized with us. It's all about having fun, enjoying what we do. I think we all work a lot of long hours, and if we don't have fun with what we do, it really it's defeating purpose. And I think it's about us recharging ourselves, and Dan has made that an impact and I would say a really strong favor in his life to make a difference for our floral industry. So I thank him for that, and I think you guys all get a lot of good out of what he's been doing. He has a marketing that he would like that's been pre-taped. He's not around right now, but he wanted to make sure that very important to him that everybody that actually is tuned in. So I would like to say thank you. My name is John Hosek with Fitz Design, and had a lot of fun this afternoon and make lots of money during prom and bling-licious everything up, my friends. Take care.
back and generate to help your store become even more successful. And that's what I'm here today to do, is to push you and give you some new ideas and some new things to work with. So we've got this that we call Fitz rule number 1, and this is really important. There's really 4 things to this. To have a strong, successful prom season, it's just like Valentine's, Mother's Day, Easter, Thanksgiving. You've got to be prepared. You've got to do your homework. You've got to really know your stuff. But one of the things that we hear often from florists is that prom frustrates them, and they spend a lot of time and they don't have a lot of fun with it. And my challenge to you is, if you're going to sit there and help girls' dreams come true for what is, in many cases, the first most important day of their life, have fun with this and enjoy it. If you don't, it shows off to your customers, your staff. Everybody knows that you're not having fun with it. You're kind of miserable about it. So when you're going to go to all this effort, then make sure you have fun with it and you enjoy the ride. So I like to share this. This is my definition of marketing. Doesn't have to be yours. But as we look at things for marketing, what I want to do is to make sure that we are talking about things that can be measured. So I differentiate between marketing and advertising on things that can be measured. You can put out a billboard that has your name on it. You can even look at your sign out in front of your store. But unless it says something specific that allows you to measure it, then you don't know whether or not the message you're delivering is actually being or not. If you put out on your sign a promotion that has a price or an item on it, it's easy to measure that. You can look and see how many you sold. If you put on your sign, have a nice day, then you don't know if anybody's read your sign or got anything measured about it, whether or not it's helped draw your brand or not. You know, if you had a sign up front that said honk, if you love flowers, you'd be able to count the honks. It'd be able to be measured. So the things we're going to talk about today are things that can be measured. And when we talk about marketing in each of our marketing webinars, that's the key thing, the element we're going to work on is things that can be measured. So what we're going to do over the next number of webinars, specifically the next 2, is we're going to flood you with ideas. We're going to give you more ideas than you can do, and I know that because I can't do them all, and this is what I do for a living. So don't try and do them all. What I want you to do is to find 2, or 2 in every area that you like, that you think you're good at, that you'll have fun at, that you'll enjoy, and then take those 2 and do them really, really well. And then what you might do is a couple of months later, find 2 more and add them to your bag of tricks, then find a couple more. But don't try and do 10 things and do them all mediocre. Find 2 things and do them really, really well. So here's a different way to look at prom. Prom is the 4th largest floral holiday. I like to think about prom as a holiday versus a day because it really is a season. Girls begin to look at their dresses 6 months in advance, and there isn't any reason that you can't be prepared for them to start looking at flowers, corsages, boutonnieres, and styles this far in advance. If you treat it like a holiday instead of a day, you'll have a whole different planning aspect of it. Prom in the U.S. is $6.6 billion. By comparison, the National Football League during the strike of 2011 was compared as a $9.2 billion industry. Prom in the United States is 2/3 the size of the National Football League. Think about all the things that are involved in it, but think about all the things that are involved in football. The number of tailgating parties, the amount of time spent watching the game, talking about the game, the Monday morning quarterbacks, all of that conversation that goes on about the NFL. And for the most part, you don't benefit from it. So that for something that is this large, are you spending that amount of time exercising your thoughts, looking at putting together your plans, setting your goals in your organization, training your staff, creating your display? Are you putting in the same amount of energy for something that is this large? Here's a quick look at where that money goes. The average couple in the U.S. spends about $1,800. The average prom gown is now over $400. Tanning, hair, prom tickets, the prom dinner, the after prom. The interesting thing about this list, if you look at this list, after the prom, there are only 3 things left. And those 3 things are on here, and 2 of them are the least expensive, and 1 of them is the most expensive. The 2 least expensive right now are flowers and the photography. One of the most expensive is the dress. What we're going to try and help you do is to get that average up, continue to get the average up year after year. And just as a quick point of reference, when we started Fitz Design, I bought Fitz Design in 2007. The average corsage was running between $20 and $25. Today, that same average corsage runs between $35 and $40. So we're seeing incremental increases, but we want to keep getting those increases, and we're going to share some really unique ideas with you today. Excuse me. This is important. Teen Prom does a number of surveys, and really, and 17 Magazine keeps obviously close tabs on the teenage girls. They go around the country doing seminars, talking what's going on in the trends. And one of the trends that they're talking about this year, that one of the trends for last year and for this year, is for fancy, expensive corsages. Now, this is something you have to take advantage of. We're constantly talking about, we wish the national media would do X. We wish they would do these things that will help benefit our business. We have the perfect storm right now. We have a perfect trend where girls are looking for expensive, unique, creative designs, and our willingness and wanting to be able to do that. So just as a quick starting point, don't you do 5 spray roses in a bow when these girls are looking for something creative and fancy. It's the trend. It's what we've hoped for, what we've wanted, and now we've got it going our way. Let's make sure we capitalize on it. So I like to talk about this a lot. At Fitz Design, we're a lot about goals and plans. So my question to you is, when it comes to this year's prom season, do you have a plan? Actually, really what I would say is, do you have a goal? You want to start with a goal and then create your plans that go with it. So just as a quick example, let's say your plan was to double your prom sales. That's your goal for the year. If that's the goal, then you have to have a number of plans that would help you do that. It has to be more thought out. It has to be more detailed. And it has to be a bigger set of plans because it's a bigger goal. If your goal is to increase your business 10%, your plans may not have to be as involved. But you've got to have a goal. Now, I talk to a lot of florists during the course of the year. Excuse me. And one of the things I find out is that they really struggle with a goal. And that's okay. If you struggle to put together a goal, set it aside. But get together with your staff, get together with the people that you're working with, and say, what do we want to do prom season? We know that we want to increase the price of our average corsage by $1, $2, $5. We want to include 3 ribbon, 3 corsage, and that means that our prices will go up X. We want to increase the price of our boutonnieres. We want to sell at the school. We want to have a prom party. And with each one of those things that you'd like to do, add a dollar value to that. So if you had a prom party, what do you think your sales would go up? Pick a number. I don't know what that number is, but you do. And write that down. So next to every idea that you're going to do, put a dollar value next to it, add them all up, and then that becomes your goal. You've just created your plan, what each of those elements are. Now you've got your goal in place and your plan. We'll talk a little bit more about measurable things. But one of the things you have to do when you create a goal is you have to tell everybody on your staff, everybody involved, what that goal is. They will help you if you take the time to share it with them. Now, one of the things about goals and plans that I share often is you all know how to do it. And the perfect example is going on vacation. Excuse me. When you go on vacation to accomplish something. If I go on vacation, I'm going to do something new, go to new places. As I said, I'm out of the country right now, and I'm doing different things. My wife, when we go on vacation, she wants to rest. So automatically we have a conflict of goals. Somehow we have to create a balance between those. But you create a goal. Let's say you're going to go to Disney World and you're going to drive. So your plan is we're going to drive down these roads. We're going to leave at this time. We're going to have to stop a couple of times for gas. We're going to stop and spend the night at this hotel. We have a general idea how much that's going to cost. When we get there, we know the things we want to see. Want to go to Animal Kingdom. Want to make sure you go to It's a Small World because you don't want to miss not having that song in your head for the next 10 years. You want to go to each of the different things that are important to you. You want to go to Epcot. You want to go to the aquarium portion of it. But you put together a plan that these are the things that you want to do. So you know how to do this one on a vacation. Do the same type of thing when you look at putting together your goal and your plan for your prom season. But one of the things that's really important is making sure that you tell your staff what this goal and what this plan is. And the comparison, again, I'd like to make would be about going on vacation. Can you imagine if you were going to go on vacation and it's time to go on vacation and you tell the kids, get in the car, we're going on vacation. And the kids say, really, where are we going? And you say, none of your business, I'm not going to tell you. Well, you know that's not going to fly. So make sure you tell your staff what the goal and the plan is, and you'll find that they'll be very helpful in helping you reach that. Valentine's Day and prom are very, very similar. What you've got is hundreds of people coming to your store for an event that happens one day, and then it's over. Now, when it comes to Valentine's Day, you know how much time you spend planning. You get together with your staff. You put a selling price on your 1 dozen roses, on your half dozen roses, your 2 dozen roses. Everybody knows how much an extra balloon costs, how much delivery costs. Everybody knows how much the blush is going to cost. You take the time to train everybody because you know it happens over just a day, and you want to maximize all of that. Prom is the same thing. One little difference between prom and Valentine's Day, you might be able to sell some apology roses for the day after Valentine's Day, but you're never going to sell a prom corsage the day after the prom. So back to your goal. Here's some things that will help you with your goal. Do you know what your average selling price of your corsage is? And how much do you want to increase that by? And take those numbers. Let's say you sell 100 corsages and you want to increase the average price of each one of them by $2. Well, you know that you just put together a plan that's going to have you increase your sales by 200. Same thing for boutonnieres. How many? What do you want to do on it? How many corsages do you want to sell? If you sold 100 last year, what's your target this year? Let's say that you want to go from 100 to 150. How are you going to get those extra 50? What are the plans that are going to help you reach that goal? What are the steps that you're going to have to take? Now, one of the things about goals is they have to be detailed and specific. Remember what I said about measurable, and these have to be measurable. You can't just say increase my sales. You have to put a number on it, and you have to write them down. So if you say you want to increase sales, if you increase your sales by a penny, you know what? You increased your sales. But when you say you want to increase your sales by, let's say, 10% as an example, then you've got a number. You knew that it's measurable. At the end of the season, that was one of our goals, was to sell at the schools. Did we? Yes, no. Did we make our goal for as many as we want to? Make sure that your goals are specific and that you can judge them and that they're tangible, whether or not you really are helping them. Refer to the plan often and don't be afraid to make changes. Sometimes your goals are too small. Sometimes your goals are too, again, going back to the vacation. If you're driving is out, you have to change your plan. And it may mean you have to change your goal. Or you get in one of those famous highway crashes where nobody moves on the highway for a couple of hours. You have to change your plan. You might have to change your goal. Don't be afraid to rework those things if you see that the plan isn't coming together the way you want it to. Every year, this is a different learning experience. You want to benefit from that. So here's one of the things I want you to do. I want you to create a goal list. Get together with your team, or if you're going to do it by yourself, but I want you to create a goal list. What is it that you want to be able to accomplish at prom? Put those down, and what I'd really like you to do is to email them to me and share them with me. Okay, back to where I said about thinking differently. Here's one of the things I want you to do about thinking differently. The first thing is to start thinking about corsage and boutonnieres, but mainly corsage, as a fashion accessory, not as a corsage. So let's think about what the girl is wearing when she's going to prom that day. She has spent over $400. Dress, create and design for the dress, because everything revolves around the dress. Fashion accessories sell for more than just plain old corsages do. So think about that as a very important way to start thinking about corsages, boutonnieres, and other accessories that go with it. The other thing that we want you to do, excuse me, I'm going to skip ahead to point number 3 here first. The other thing we want you to do is to start looking at selling 3 things instead of 2. You want to increase your sales, and I know that. I want to increase mine every year also. So one thing that you can do is talk to the girl and take a leadership perspective, either whether it's the girl or the boy or the mother, and say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure that you got the perfect corsage that goes with your dress. We're going to make sure he's got a boutonniere that matches you, because, honey, it's all about you. He's just there for the ride. And then sell them a 3rd item. What every girl is hoping is that she's picked out the perfect dress that when she walks into the prom, all the heads turn, everybody looks at her. So what you've got an opportunity to do by taking the lead in the conversation is to say to her just this. Everybody's going to have a corsage and a boutonniere, but I know you want to be different. So why don't we take care of your corsage, his boutonniere, and then let's get you a floral something that is different than anybody else. And just by the fact that you're going to try and sell 3 items instead of 2, your sales have to go up. Now, this may not work on every one of them, and that's okay. But if it works on some of them, then you found that you increase your sales. We find out, coach of leadership, you're going to find that it really does work most of the time. And then point number 1 on here is I really want you to think about this as a holiday and a season, and not just as a single day that happens to have some extra business to go with it. Here's a rule that will help you increase your sales. I want you to have these magazines in your stores, and in particular, I would prefer you have this one, which is called Teen Prom, and I'll get it in front of the camera here sooner or later. And I want you to have this one because Teen Prom does a great job of showing flowers in their magazine. In their designs. But you can see here with Teen Prom, they do promote flowers as a part of prom. Have this magazine in your store. When the girl comes in, I want you to have her do 2 things. First, have her to show you the color of her dress. And we all know the nightmares that saves. That dress is not purple, even though the boy is likely to tell you that it is. Show you the color of the dress, and that will help you a lot. The other rule that we have, and what the girl tells you. And so the second thing we would say is for the girl to tell you, to show you what her dress is. So again, back to this one or to this one. When the girl shows you her dress, she has really told you what her budget is. If she has the money to buy that dress, she has the money to spend more money on her corsage, her boutonniere, and her floral accessory. The fancier the dress, the more likely it is that she's going to want that third piece. So the rule we've created is corsages start at 15% of the price of the dress. And I'm going to have to tell you, I have never had anybody tell me this didn't work. I've had people tell me they thought I was an idiot and it would never work, so they didn't try it. They said, okay, we'll do 10% of the price of the dress. And they find that it works. It goes back to what I said earlier about leadership, that if you present leadership, you give them a direction to follow, often you will find that they will follow you. But showing you the dress is a cue about their budget, the same way that if they showed up in your parking lot in the Beverly Hillbillies pickup truck, that would tell you what their budget is. But if they showed up out front in a Rolls-Royce limo, that also told you what your budget is. Now, keep in mind, there are plenty of girls who are the doctor's daughters and the lawyer's daughters and the entrepreneur's daughters. There are girls who want to spend a lot. We'll talk about that in one of the other webinars about how to maximize and upsell those types of things. Try this rule. Use the magazine. 15% of the price of the dress to be your starting price. The other thing is you're creating a fashion accessory that goes with the dress. Not 5 spray roses and a bow, not carnations, roses, and orchids, but something that actually is an accessory that goes with the dress as strong as the purse and the shoes go with that particular dress. Here's a slide that everybody likes, and here's why those magazines are important. On the right, that's how boys see color: red, purple, pink, orange, yellow, green, and blue. And you've all had that where the boys said that it was a green dress and actually it was closer to a seafoam dress. And then on the left, how girls see color. So having them show you the color of the dress. If the boy comes in, the girl will be happy to text message a picture of the dress. Same thing with the mom. Want to make sure that you're making a fashion accessory that goes with just the right shade of the right color. So here's some quick and easy ways to get your prom sales up and ready. First, give them the freedom to be expressive. Let them be involved in the process. Create some signature expensive designs that are going to go in your display, and we'll talk about display next week in a little bit more detail. Have some very expensive corsages made up, so that when the doctor's daughter and the lawyer's daughter come in, and the girl that bought this dress comes in, that you've got something fancy for her to make sure that her dream is just as important as a gal who comes in the Beverly Hillbillies pickup truck that is on a budget this year. You've got the ability to take care of both of them. Have a lot of ribbons to choose from. One thing you all know is women love ribbon. And if you're not sure, just look in your back room, because back of your rooms are filled with it. Show off unique foliages. This is a great opportunity to create something different. Get some unique foliages and have them in your cooler and show them some unique things. One of the other things is don't be afraid to use peer pressure. Everybody else does. If the girl picks out a corsage and a boutonniere, there's nothing wrong with saying to her, you know that all the other gals that have come from our shop are going to have 3 things. And you want to stand out and be as stunning as they are. That can help you raise your price point up. Again, I talked to you about picking 2. Find 2 that you like. This one you might not like, but if you do, don't be afraid to use it. One way to increase your sales, just raise your price. You see it happen from your suppliers. You see it everywhere you go. Prices go up. Don't be afraid to raise your price too. There's a strategy that some people often use, and it's called good, better, best. So you make 3 corsage frames to start with. You have a low-end good one, a middle range, better one, and a fancy one that's the best one. One of the things we both know is most people pick the middle one. So if that's the case, make there to be a larger gap between your bottom one and your middle one. Don't have each one of them only have a $10 difference in price, but maybe the middle one has a $20 difference in price between the bottom one, and then your best one might have a $10 or even a $30 difference. But if you know, and we've seen this over the years, if most people are going to pick the middle one, then pick that middle one that lines up with your goal. If your goal is to increase the price of your corsages, make sure your middle one is priced a little bit higher so that it'll help you meet that goal. But if you know that when they see good, better, best, they pick the middle one, make sure that you've priced that middle one so that it works for you. Have the youngest girl in the store be your designated prom salesperson. If I'm the youngest person in your store, go get somebody else. You just have to be around a couple of teenage girls to listen to them talk, to know that they have their own language, the way they talk to each other, how excited they get about prom. And if you have that youngest girl in your store as your designated prom salesperson, they're probably going to help maximize the sales. One of the things I say often is that one thing I know is that no girl is going to come running out of the flower shop and jump in the front seat of the minivan and go, "Mom, I just got the coolest prom flowers from the gray-haired old man in the flower shop." That's not going to happen. But if you've used that youngest person in your store, she is likely to go jump in the front seat of the van and go, "Mom, I just worked with Susie and we put together the coolest prom corsage. And she showed me these things that nobody else is going to have." And and you use that energy and that connection of those two to help you and help you reach your sales goals and get the best sales. Now, one of the things I say is that gal with her high energy, you might not want her to be your designated sympathy salesperson. So look at having that. Get that youngest gal to be your designated prom salesperson. Have your staff trained, and I can't emphasize this enough. Make sure they know the prices, the styles, the things you can do, all of the bells and whistles that can be included. Some time spent training your staff will come back to you in great sales. And again, I'm talking about things that can be measured. One thing you're going to be able to do is measure whether or not this training has come back and you see that increase in sales. One thing you can't say to this generation is, "Honey, I'll make it pretty for you." This generation goes on their cell phone, they find something, they buy it. They want to know exactly what they're going to get. So take the time to share with them what it's going to look like. The more they know about the process, the more they're involved in the process, the more they're going to add things to it, and your sales are going to go up because of that. Don't be afraid to offer high prices first. You can always go down, but we all know how high it is, how hard it is to be able to increase prices. Start at the higher price point, working yourself down. Have at least $100 corsage option available. Interesting story a florist in Michigan told me. Saginaw, Michigan, in the past has been a very depressed area, especially during the recession. She put out a $69 corsage. She knew she was not going to sell it, but she wanted to be able to show what she could do. Well, the prom season was over. Not only did she sell it, she sold 3 of them, and even had one girl come in and say, "I like this, but can you make it fancier?" So don't be afraid to put that out there and make sure they know the upper end limits of what you can do. Boutonnieres, we'll do a whole thing on boutonnieres. There is so much money to be made in boutonnieres, but looking at designing boutonnieres, and make sure you get that boutonniere order from the girl while you've got her in the store at the same time. Make it a part of the processing. If you are dealing with the boy, be careful not to use frilly, fancy, flowery kinds of words. Talk to him straight. Make sure he understands exactly what it is he's ordering. Here's a few more tips. Sell the bracelet first. They're coming for flowers. Take care of the corsage, but if you sell the bracelet first, you will see that your sales will go up. Again, it's a strategy that you can try, that you can measure. Look at your more expensive ones and then look at whether or not that more expensive one came because you sold the bracelet first. Have them try it on. Once they try it on, they take ownership of it, and they're more likely to keep it or keep trying it on until they find one that they like. Remember about leadership. You're in charge. They will follow you if you're giving them the direction and the suggestions of things that they should follow. Again, I can't reemphasize training enough. Try this 15% of the price of the dress. You'll see that it works. Make sure that you're personalizing this. 5 spray roses and a bow that changes to match the color of the dress is not what these girls want. They want something that is a fashion accessory that goes with the dress, and spend the time to personalize it and customize it. Then don't forget flowers for the rest of her. Rings, necklaces, hair pieces, purse, ankles, shoes. We've got all of those pieces at Fitz Design that can help you, but you can also create them. They love flowers. It's a great time for them. Don't be afraid to offer suggestion sale to add those things. Add in motion, texture, dangles. Again, make it creative. One of the things I learned over the years is that if one girl walks up to another girl at the prom and says, "Where'd you get your corsage?" She's asking one of two questions. "Where'd you get your corsage? That is the ugliest thing I have ever seen, and I don't ever want to shop there." Or, "Wow, that's cool, and I wish I'd have got it from there. So where did you get it? Because I want to make sure I go to the cool flower shop next time so that I get something that is as impressive as yours." The other thing, especially about Fitz Design items, stress that it's a keepsake. We know that girls keep their prom corsages for years, for decades. It's going to be kept. When they pick it up and they remember it, they're also going to remember the prom, but you want them to remember the experience that they had with you. Keepsakes sell for more than regular items do, so continually stress the fact that they are getting a great keepsake that they're going to have for a long time. Make the pickup experience exciting. Not just give it to them in a box, but take the time to maybe create some beautiful packaging that goes with it. We have a girl or a shop that has shared with us that they bring it out to the girl on a silver platter. And that by itself is clearly special. Here's a little tip we also talk about in technology. One thing that will help you is when the corsage is ready, set up an area where you can take a picture of it, an area that has the name of your flower shop in it. And take a picture of it and text message it to the girl. 30 seconds later, she's going to pass it around to her best girlfriends with one of those, "OMG, look what I'm wearing to the prom." A minute later, it's going to go on her Facebook page for everybody to see. If you've taken a good picture that's got the name of your flower shop in it, you just told them where they get these great, cool corsages at. So the other thing, have an area set up when they come in to pick up their corsages. Take their pictures with them. Put up a wall so people can identify with them. They're also going to want to come in and see them again. Tell the kids to take pictures while they're at the prom and bring them back in. Post them on your Facebook page. Post them in your store. Florists have told me before that if they bring a photo back in to post on the wall, they offer them a free rose or something like that to get them in the door. Put lots of pictures of your designs on your Facebook pages. And be sure to make sure that you send them a text message or some way of saying a special thank you to them. Okay, that is it for me today. Thank you very much. If you've got questions, let us know. Send them over to John or to Ashley and Jamie in the office. We covered a lot of information quickly, but we're here to answer your questions. We're here to help you. thank you very much for attending the webinar. They're going to end my portion of it, but they are there to answer questions and feed those questions to John. John's been teaching this for us for a number of years, an expert at this. He'll give you lots of great creative ideas for all you do supporting this. We hope that you're also making sure that your select Fitz design go into your store. One know, and we share this often, education comes from profits. Profits comes from sales. The stronger our sales are, the more education we're able to provide. And this is something we're going to continue after prom. And we're able to do this because of the great support you guys have to us. So please do your best to make sure you're supporting us, and we appreciate it. We're going to continue to provide these types of tools for you. And we want you to every year to have a more successful prom season than you had the year before. Again, thank you very much. And next week, I'll be back in the country. I'll be back with you. Have a great day.